Good, I'm good. Okay.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope everyone had a wonderful summer and enjoyed the beautiful weather we had. Welcome to the Women's Canadian Club of Hamilton meeting, September 15 at 1 p.m. The Women's Canadian Club of Hamilton is striving to continue to be a group of people concerned about the issues that affect women, educating and advocating for those issues in our community. The purpose of the Women's Canadian Club of Hamilton is to foster throughout the Greater Hamilton area an interest in all matters of public concern, to strengthen Canadian unity and identity, encourage the education and promotion of Canadian history and heritage, foster an appreciation of Canadian culture and traditions to new Canadians. Our monthly meetings, which are now virtual, takes place the third Wednesday of each month, but please look at our fall newsletter for full details. We recognize and acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and Haudenosaunee nations, and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon, Wampum Agreement. Might we not only learn about the Indigenous people of Canada, but from them. Today, our guest speaker is Ms. Alex Jacobs-Blum. Alex Jacobs-Blum, Lower Cayuga Nation of Six Nations of the Grand River Territory and Mixed European. She's an emerging artist and curator here in Hamilton. Her photo-based practice explores the duality of her identity through visual storytelling by focusing on the land that has sustained her family for generations. She navigates ingenuity, reclamation, resiliency, and healing while challenging colonial structures.
So much, Louise.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Is there any at this time? I know we'll be sharing my screen. Bear with me for a moment.
Excellent. Got it.
You don't want to have.
Yeah, if you just do that, Louise, and then click that bottom bar again. If you can just go back to the first one, that'd be amazing. Perfect. Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, that's so pretty.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. And I really appreciate being here today. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. And it's great to meet you all. Just to, again, just quickly introduce myself. Scano, hello, my name is Alex Jacobs-Blum. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm of the Wolf clan of the Lower Cayuga Nation of Six Nations of the Grand River and Mixed European. And I currently reside in what is now known as Hamilton. So I just wanted to quickly open the space by giving gratitude to the original peoples of this land and to our original mother. I'm really grateful to the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation of the Anishinaabeg Nation, whose ancestral territory I reside, and whom I've had a relationship with this land since time immemorial and continue to have today. along with so many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people who are tirelessly working to reconnect with the land, renew their languages, and revive ceremonies that have been diminished at the hands of colonialism. Hamilton is on Treaty 3 between the Lakes Purchase Land, which is an agreement that was made between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit, where they ceded over 3 million acres of land between Lakes Huron, Ontario, and Erie after the American Revolution in 1792. This agreement allowed for my people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, to live along the Grand River, about 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. And I would really love to give thanks to the wind, the trees, the birds, the insects, the stars, the sun, and the moon that have brought me here safely today and in good health. I try to remind myself daily to be mindful of our mother's health. And as a young Indigenous woman living on this land, I need to ensure the safety and the health of the 7 generations that are to come. And I'd also like to take a second with everybody just to do a big, deep breath in and hold space and kind of give thanks to what you would like to give gratitude for. And I challenge you all to learn about the history of this place that we call Canada. I also like you to be mindful of your impact on our mother's health and the 7 generations so that we can take better care of the one who has taken care of us. And again, I am so grateful to Louise and the team at the Women's Canadian Club of Hamilton for having me here today. Nyawagoa, thank you so much. Louise, do you mind going to the next slide, please? Perfect, you got it. So just to share a little bit more about myself, I am an artist and an emerging curator. I do a lot of freelance work. Oh, perfect. Yeah, you just pause that there. That would be great. I do a lot of freelance work, but mostly long-term. I have the incredible honor to be the first inaugural Indigenous curatorial resident at Hamilton Artist Inc. And they're a non-profit gallery space on the corner of James Street North and Cannon in Hamilton. So to provide a little bit more context for my positionality as an artist and a curator, and really as a person, I wanted to share a bit about my journey. So growing up in Hamilton, I had limited access to my community of 6 Nations. I grew up in the city and attended public school. So the narratives that were taught in school were really about that Indigenous peoples were of the past and that we were no longer living and in the present. So this made me like really confused about my identity for a long time. And being a white presenting person, I navigated the world as a non-Indigenous person. And I struggled a lot with my identity, and I was really kind of almost ashamed of who I was for a long time. So I attended my undergrad in photography at Sheridan College. So there, I kind of experienced a bit of an identity crisis in my 3rd year. I learned that my grandmother attended the Mohawk Institute residential school on 6 Nations. And this was something that was never taught to me in school or in my home. So I was doing a lot of research at the time, and a lot of things were kind of coming into perspective for me. I don't want to talk too much about it. The recent news has really affected myself and my family really deeply, but I just kind of wanted to give you some context as to my journey. So that moment really changed my life entirely. I felt a deep longing to return home to my community, and photography was really kind of that entry point in reclaiming my identity. So I'll share some more photos with you later on in the presentation. But photography really allowed for that critical self-reflection in myself. I'm really now aware of my positionality and as a mixed European person, but also being a white presenting person as well, that I have a responsibility to unlearn and relearn and hold myself accountable. And I also know that I carry privilege and biases that are rooted in colonial thought. So I sometimes struggle with that feeling of not being like an authentic Indigenous person, but this is a lifelong journey for me. And I feel every day that I learn something new. And it's been like the most incredible experience of my life. And every day I'm super grateful for it. It feels like my ancestors are bringing me back to myself. And I've heard this from somebody before, that my ancestors are holding me within my own body. And it's such a comfort. And I just want to continue to live my life in a good way with love and kindness. Louise, could you go to the next slide, please? Perfect. Thank you so much. So I just wanted to flash forward now to the beginning of 2021, where I submitted a proposal to Hamilton Artists Inc. They had an open call for their Indigenous curatorial residency, their very first one. And through a juried process, I was chosen to be the first inaugural curatorial resident, which is, it's been so exciting and the greatest honor. And as my practice is kind of growing and taking shape, I wanted to expand my practice from photography and into curating. I still want to do photography long term, but I wanted to also be doing curatorial work as well. So the residency is 18 months long, and it's part-time. It started back in March of this year with an exhibition to open June 2022 that will run to August 2022. I'm really grateful to the team at the Inc. because they're so incredible, for one, but they also provided me with so much support throughout this process of my first curatorial project, And I'm still kind of in my research phase. I'm reaching out to artists right now and developing my concepts, but I'm happy to share some of my key themes and inspirations for the exhibition. My main theme that I've been thinking about is Indigenous futurities. And this was a term that was coined by Grace L. Dillon, who edited the anthology of Indigenous science fiction called Walking the Clouds. I have it here. It's blowing my mind. Indigenous futurities is where Indigenous peoples are planting seeds for a future that's to come. And it's also a visioning of a future where Indigenous knowledge, perspectives, teachings, technologies are utilized and they're valued, where we're developing a future that will benefit the 7 generations to come. And it's also a future that challenges colonial frameworks and reimagines Western methods to create something new. Our stories and our languages have been disrupted by colonialism. So through this process, we're revitalizing our knowledges from our ancestors of the past, the present, and the future as they're happening simultaneously. They're one timeline. And through this process, we're returning to ourselves. So I really want to acknowledge and thank my dear friend, Kim Anderson, for introducing me to Indigenous futurity, because it's totally changed my life and given me such a strength and a visioning for the future. I'm not an expert by any means, but I feel like, and I still feel like I'm wrapping my brain around all the layers and complexities, but it makes me feel super hopeful for the future. Louise, do you mind going to the next slide, please? Thank you so much. So my goal through the residency and the exhibition is to connect with Indigenous community, but specifically with Indigenous youth. I really want to change institutional spaces and revision them into spaces where youth feel like safer, they feel seen, and they feel heard. I hear often, because I do some consulting work on the side as well, that institutions are talking about their hopes of decolonizing and indigenizing their spaces. And if I'm being honest, they can't truly be either, because decolonizing, would mean that they would have to take down their building and give the land back to Indigenous peoples. And indigenizing would mean that it would have to been created in consultation, in community, that was rooted in Indigenous teachings and methodologies. And so I heard this term actually 2 years ago now from this artist named Kent Monkman. We had a super brief conversation, but it really stuck with me. He used the word decentering. And really, that means that Indigenous peoples would not have created these colonial structures and institutions, but we are learning to have to shift the framework, what is within the institution. And so I take inspiration from this because, and really consider how institutional space and what does it mean to those who have not been considered when those spaces were built? I'm really mindful too of the white walls that they're reminiscent of healthcare buildings where racialized and marginalized people experience systemic discrimination. They haven't always been safe spaces for everybody. And in terms of gallery spaces, my family would often mention feeling intimidated of the white walls and the artistic language being difficult, to understand, and has often been rooted in academia. So consultation is really important to me in my practice. And through the residency, I've been consulting with a number of Indigenous community members and arts professionals, but I will also be consulting with Indigenous youth. I really want to ensure that their voice shapes the exhibition. And I want to create a space that is meant to celebrate Indigenous excellence and resilience that is entirely rooted in love and care. So to have this opportunity to develop an exhibition and invite artists who are utilizing ancestral but also contemporary methods in their work, I want to inspire youth that they can also be artists and creatives, that Indigenous art doesn't have to look one certain way. So this is kind of where I'm at with my residency. I'd be happy to share some of my work if that's of interest. Louise, you can go to the next slide as well. But I'm also happy to answer any questions that folks might have. Sorry, I'm scrolling through here to see if anybody has any questions so far. I can keep going and talk a little bit more about my photographic work if that's of interest. Yeah, I see some heads nodding.
I actually had a question. Sorry.
Yes.
I had a question.
Yes.
So you mentioned, I guess I wanted to expand a little bit more about your time in university. At what point did it, because it seems like when you're in school, that's a part of my language, but that's when the shit hits the fan. And I always hear about when you're a student and you enter into a world that's diverse, it could be both a good thing and a bad thing, because on the one hand you're finding your tribe, right? You find your tribe. Sorry. But then on the other hand, you're confronted with a lot of racism or things that challenge your belief system. So I wanted you to talk a little bit more about that, I guess.
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you so much, Melissa. Yeah, that was really like a pivotal moment for me when I had that learning myself. And that's when I decided I need to shift because my interest in photography was I was really interested in fashion and product photography. And so I felt like really excited about that. But then once I had like that kind of realization, that moment, I had shifted and that it changed my entire life. So I felt like this is what I want to talk about now. And so my thesis shifted. And my first thesis project it's titled Red, but in Cayuga language. And really it was like the introduction of myself to my community and really walking those two worlds. And what does that mean? And why am I not supposed to know this information? So that was really my introduction to it. And so I was really kind of exploring these themes throughout my time at Sheridan. And I found like there were barriers with a lot of my profs where they were like, okay, like this is a shift. And they didn't know how to really process it. They were kind of like, good for you kind of thing. And I didn't feel like I had like the necessary supports or mentorship from them in order to like really kind of flourish this work. So I kind of just tried to do that within myself and my practice and finding my own community and people that uplifted me. And it wasn't until like after college that I learned like who Shelley Nero was. And I'm like, why didn't they show that to me when I was in school? So it was a really interesting process. I don't regret my time there because I did learn a lot. and Sheridan is very like technically sound. They have a lot of resources, and they're very skilled technically. So I feel like I'm thankful for that. But that other part, I do wish like that they did uplift me in my work and my practice. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking about I didn't finish university, but I did have like an experience, like when I was confronted with people questioning, like, why is there a Black student union? What's that about? I I guess I wanted to know if did you encounter people questioning? I mean, you mentioned that your professors were kind of at a loss of what to do with your switch. But I wanted to know if you had experienced any kind of negativity, I guess, among your peers, I guess.
Yes, I was just thinking about this moment the other day, and I was presenting my final thesis to my class, and there was one student who had I don't know what her goal was, but anyways, I had finished presenting my thesis project, and she, I guess, had a story about Indigenous peoples, and she said, "Oh, you know those stupid drum circles," and then kind of trailed off, and I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Oh, I didn't mean to say that," but it that even a slip up like that was harmful to me, and I still remember that, and I had a reaction, even though the other day I was just thinking about it. I still had a reaction, and I was like, why did that person say that? So other than that, no, I think I didn't get too much feedback, to be honest. It was a lot of like quietness. Like if I told people like what I was doing, they were just mostly quiet. So
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Yeah,
yeah,
I was
thank
very
you.
curious about that, but yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Of course, no, thank you. Are there any other questions? Just gonna scroll through here.
There are 3 questions in the chat, I believe.
Do you mind reading them out, Louise? I don't know if I can see them here.
Okay, Susan was asking a question.
One is, do you want the chat ones? Would you like me to say it? I'm just wondering whether those people whose spaces, facial spaces are black, can they see the pictures
Yes.
that we're showing? Okay, that was my question. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad.
Mhm.
I'd like to see more of your photography.
Absolutely. Okay, Louise, I'll have you just go to the next slide. So this is a series that I did last year called The Land We Are and Have Always Been. I'm still working with my language, so please excuse my pronunciations. Ti sa neos, when we are healing. So this is a photographic series of 3 pieces, and it is about how the land and water give and sustain all life on Earth, and how they embody knowledge that is intrinsic to our health and well-being. So just elaborating that the land and water are synonymous also with Indigenous ways of being, and that they also need to be considered when engaging with Indigenous peoples and with youth specifically, because we are working to rebuild our relationships with the land and with the water. And in caring for them, we can, just ensure a sustainable future for the generations to come. So Louise, if you can go to the next slide. This is a part of that series as well. And this is smoke from a fire. But I thought it was really beautiful that it reminded me of my ancestors.
That is beautiful.
Thank you so much. And Louise, if you can continue to the next one as well. And this is also a part of the series. Oh, sorry, Louise, if you don't mind just backing up just for 1 minute. Perfect. It's a ribbon skirt, my very first ribbon skirt, and I wore it in the water. And so this is myself taking a photo of my skirt. And the ribbon skirts are open like that because they connect us directly with the land, the women with the land. And the water is so healing and cleansing for women as well. It's a symbol for women. So I thought that this was a beautiful marrying of objects.
Oh, that's pretty.
Thank you so much. And if you don't mind just going to the next one. So this is my series Anecdote, and this series is really tied to my journey. So I'll explain a little bit about it, but there's about, I think I added maybe 9 images to the slide, so we can just go through the next few. But to kind of give you some context, I really had a longing to go to my ancestral homelands for a long time, but I didn't feel like I had the confidence to do it. I didn't feel like I knew enough. So back in 2017, there was a moment, I don't know what caused this moment, but I felt inspired to go to my homelands, which is upstate New York, and specifically Cayuga Lake, which is one of the Finger Lakes in Rochester. And I felt like I'm ready to go, and I wanted to document that journey of me going to my homelands and reclaiming my indigeneity. It felt like a personal learning journey, but also it felt political as well, that I am still here, I'm still present, and they have not, or colonialism has not broken us, that we're still working to reclaim our indigeneity. So just to share a little story, a little background on this, I went in the fall of 2017 for the first time, and I was just by myself. I had my camera with me and some food, and I wanted to drive there. It's about a 4.5-hour drive. And I was living at my dad's house at the time, which is in Mount Hope. So I was probably about St. Catharines area, and I started to get intense anxiety. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I was really nervous. And in that moment, a hawk flew right over my car. It was so close to me. And my grandmother, who on my mom's side, she had such a great sense of humor, and had always told me, she's like, hawks are really, really lucky. And if you see them, go to the casino because you'll always win. And I'm like, true, of course. And I just always remembered that. But anyways, in that moment, I was comforted by that hawk flying over my car. And I kept going. And as I was driving there, I saw 26 hawks all the way there. And it felt like they were bringing me to my homelands. And they weren't off in the distance, they were so close to me. And it was really special. And I felt like when I got there, it was just an overwhelming sense of love. And I just felt so cared for, being on the land. And I've never been to this place before, but I felt just so comfortable, and that I had been there before. So I just turned off my GPS and navigated it as I did, and was getting out of the car, taking photos. I did that probably for about 6 hours. And as I was driving home, or well, okay, so when I was there, there were like signs that I kind of like was confronted with as I was driving, and I just happened upon these signs, and they were like, I don't know what they thought to be, but one of them was like Indian mound, Indian people like slayed here, and then Cayuga Castle burned down here. It was like really interesting to be like confronted with those, which kind of like took me out of my moment. But then I was able to kind of like return to myself. I spent a lot of time with the water and just sitting with the land. And so on my way home later that evening, I was like, what brought me here? Like, why did I feel such a pull to come here? And I had to pull over because a thought hit me like a brick wall, and that it was like my ancestors' love brought me here, and love that transcends time and space, people that I've never even met. But that love I felt so deeply, and I still feel it now. And it really brought me to that space, and I still think about it almost every day, how profound that experience was. And so I think I want to continue that journey. I mentioned earlier on to some of the folks that were in the chat that I have a solo exhibition at the Art Gallery of Hamilton in 2024, and this body of work will be a continuation of that. So I really want to like spend more time on my homelands and like camp out there and understand like what does it mean to engage with my ancestors, and what does it mean to hold ceremony with my ancestors. So that will be my next body of work. So we can kind of flip through here, Louise, if you don't mind, kind of going through the rest of the slideshow, because that is a part of this series.
So just let it run?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you so
that's
much.
gorgeous. Oh.
I think that might be it.
Yes.
Perfect. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions?
I have one. What is the history behind the ribbon skirts?
Ooh, good question. I don't know that history. I'm
Yeah.
very, very sorry, but I know that they are straight like that, so that it directly connects women to the land. And it is similarly to how men grow their hair long, is to connect them closely to the land.
My one thought was, first thought was, well, maybe at some time in the past, there was trading done for beads. Maybe there was trading done for ribbons, and then they made them out of ribbons. I don't know. Like, where would the ribbons come from, except from somewhere in the East, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. It was the same thing with our beads too, like you were mentioning. So
Yeah.
I'm sure it was done through trading, but I'm not too sure about that history. But that's a really good question, and that's something I would love to learn more about. So thank you for that.
I had a question about, there was one image in the, I guess it was in the rearview mirror. It's like a dream catcher. I see a lot of everybody has a dream catcher like in their house, or and I'm told that when you dream, the dream catcher catches all your dreams. I just wanted to get more clarification on that because I have them too. Like I've gotten them for my kids, but I often wonder if I really know what they mean.
Also a good question. Like I know they're not traditional for Haudenosaunee peoples. I think they're more Anishinaabe, if I'm correct. And I don't know truly their meaning behind them either. I, like you saw in the car, I have them too.
Well,
Oh, sorry, Margaret, yes?
I had a dream catcher, but it I don't know what happened to it. But when it was given to me, the colors that hang, there's 4 different colors hanging, and they are supposed to represent north, east. Now I'm directionally dysfunctional, so never south
North
and west.
and west, yeah.
Okay, now
Yeah.
that's what I know, and also that they catch your dreams, like good dreams and bad dreams, and
Yes.
absorb them. So that was what was told to me. So the colors are pertinent to the earth, the sea, the sky, and the land.
Wow.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are longer teachings and stories that go along with them, but I'm not too sure, to be honest with you, and I apologize.
Mhm. That's all right. I learned that from an Indigenous person who I'm friends with. So
That's
There,
great.
there's one thing I think you mentioned a couple of times, something about 7 generations to come.
Yes.
What is that?
So that is all of the generations that will be born into this life. So whether that's animals, plants, but humans, the 7 generations beyond us. So our children's children. And so that when they are born, they can inherit the beauty that we have now, that we're making sure that we're sustaining the land so that they can inherit also a beautiful land.
Okay, so it could have said future.
Yeah, we
yeah,
call it
okay,
7. Yeah,
okay.
we call it 7 generations.
Thank you.
It's
Of course.
interesting. You may have noticed in the store there are environmental products that have sort of taken this 7 generations idea and possibly co-opted it a little bit into their products,
Right.
because they're environmentally sustainable. So you might notice it on environmental products.
I'll have to keep my eye out, but I'm sure.
There is a brand called 7th Generation.
I see.
Yeah.
Why not? Take it all.
Yeah, I know.
I'm totally kidding.
I know.
So I have another question. So what about, and it's just a very general one that I don't know anything about, what is the significance of the turtle to the Indigenous people? Because it's supposed to be very important, I think.
Yeah, the turtle is represented through different stories, and one of our clans is Turtle Clan, and the Turtle Clan will have specific roles and responsibilities in community, but also in the larger context, it is a part of our creation story. And there's a world called Sky World, and I don't know if you know too much about our creation story, but there was a woman that lived in Sky World and who was pregnant, and she fell to the earth, and as she was falling, it was just an open body of water. So geese had caught Sky Woman as she was falling and brought her down to the back of a turtle. And when she landed on the turtle, she said that she could grow the land, and she just needed a little parcel of dirt. So a few animals had swam down to the bottom of the ocean and grabbed grabbed some dirt for her, and she planted it on the back of the turtle, and the turtle grew. And so that's why we called North America Turtle Island.
Ah,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
of course.
Any other
That's
questions?
what my brother-in-law called Turtle Island.
Sorry?
My late brother-in-law always called it Turtle Island.
Oh, beautiful. It always like makes me feel good, like thinking about the turtle. And I heard too a story from an elder up in Saugeen. My mom had just recently moved up there, which is like along Lake Huron. And my mom always felt like she felt a calling to go there. And so she's now retired and living up there. Anyway, so this elder was speaking to us, and she mentioned that my mom feels so good there because that is the heart of the turtle. Where Lake Huron sits is the heart of the turtle. And so my mom was like, wow, like she really felt a calling to that. So I thought that was really beautiful.
Yes.
Oh, and Melissa says, I use the Turtle Island story when I do my story time show. Oh, thank you so much. That's beautiful. But I just wanted to say thank you to you all, and thanks for sharing this space with me. I'm really grateful, and to share my journey. And if you feel like you want to reach out to me, I'll give Louise my details if you want to reach out separately. Maybe you have some questions afterwards as things are percolating. I'd be happy to answer them. So yeah, thank you so much. Nyagawa.
Susan?
Language.
Is it my turn now, Louise?
Yes.
Yeah,
Susan.
okay. Okay, and I had the very pleasant task of thanking you and telling you that we very much appreciate your presentation today. I know I learned a lot, and I'm hoping that everyone else, I'm sure you did as well. It's nice to know the references to nature and your love and your gratitude towards the whole aspect of life is carrying on, and as it does with us, but I can see it definitely with you. And your photography is just beautiful. I hope that you'll let us know, the Canadian Club, when it comes about that your exhibition is taking place, because I'm sure we'd just love to see it.
I love that.
Yeah, the references are just beautiful. And before I end, I'd just like to say I'm sure that all of us grieve with you and the Indigenous people with the loss about the Indigenous schools. It's just, I mean, it's horrific to us. I can imagine being so close to it, that it must be so much more with you, and that our thoughts and prayers are with all of you and hopefully that at some point there'll be peace, that you'll find some more peace over this, and a reckoning with it too. So again, on behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank you so much for coming today, and we'd love to have you come to our meetings at any point. So thank you. And will you join with me and give me a clap for it? Thank you.
I greatly
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you so
much.
much, Susan. For our newcomers, Susan is our past president of the club.
Yes. Yes.
So now we move into the upcoming notices of upcoming events. Our next scheduled guest speaker is October the 20th, and that's with, she's here today with us, Esther, and she was speaking about meaningful citizenship, and we look forward to seeing her on October 20th. Following that, it's November the 17th, estate planning, administration and litigation with Shayna Bixma. And of course, our annual holiday social, it's going to be amazing. Look forward for laughs and good times. And that's December the 15th. We encourage you all to invite, to share and invite others to the upcoming meetings. This session, as mentioned, has been recorded, and once it's ready, we'll provide it to you. And we just ask you to share, and to, hello, Jan. I saw you beautiful. Welcome, as well as Gwen.
And
Welcome, welcome.
quiet, Louise, for heaven's sakes, who knew? And congratulations on taking over the leadership. This is wonderful. Well done. I'm very proud. I have 5 Zooms, but I didn't want to miss. Isn't she just, I'm telling you, you're so remarkable. I'm so proud of you. And what a great presentation. But Louise, congratulations. Now I'll go back on mute and be quiet.
Gwen, thank you for being here as well. And thank you all for being here. Remember, stay well, stay safe, wear your masks, and continue doing what we do best. Keeping our environment around us clean. We have been doing it for years. That's who we are. And we look forward, hopefully someday we will connect face to face. But for now, it's and via Zoom. Thank you all. We appreciate you.
Nice. Looking forward to talking to you in October, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.